Hey guys, I'm Chris. Welcome to Show Me the Hogs. In this video, I'm going to give you 5 tips that will help you make your next fishing trip with your kids a successful one. Tip number 1, fish at your kids' skill level. When your kids are first starting out, I recommend doing something simple. Like when my kids were little, we started them out with those like little basic kid caster rods, like the Spider-Man pole or the Jurassic Park pole, something really basic. We didn't spend a whole lot of money on it. I think it's like 10 bucks at Walmart. And whenever they mastered that, I got my oldest, when he was 4 or 5 years old, we got him his first spinning reel. And then he started mastering that. I got a little crazy and bought him his first fly fishing rod. And now when we go to the park, whether it's here at Bee Tree Park or Susan Park in South St. Louis, I mean, that kid's out there, and of course he needs a little help sometimes with gear issues, but he's out there catching bluegill, shellcracker. Man, he's even caught catfish on the fly, which is nuts. So just know your kid's skill level. Start with something pretty basic, and when you feel like they can go up to the next level, do that. So that's tip number 1. Fish at your kids' appropriate skill level. Tip number 2, go to locations that are appropriate for your kids. What I mean by that is, don't go on a big long hike into the woods with your 4-year-old, because you're going to be dragging his butt to the water and then back to the truck. It's going to be a terrible time. You're going to hate every minute of it. So what I recommend is, when your kids are little, go to your local parks. Like today, we're out here at Bee Tree Park. We're doing some catfishing. It's easy for me to park, load all of our gear into our wagon, and we'll walk down to the water, catch some fish, and then get back to the truck. And if I so happen to have to drag my kids back to the truck, it's not that far of a trip for me. But as my kids start to get older, I'm going on more difficult stuff. So as your kids get older, go on that big long hike into the woods if you feel like your kids can make it, or take them out on the water on a boat if you feel like your kids are old enough and responsible enough to be on a boat. So just know where your kid's skill level is at and select a location that's appropriate for them. Tip number 3, make a checklist. Now this could apply whether you're fishing with kids or without kids, but I always make a checklist before I leave the house so I make sure I don't forget anything, because if I do forget something, it'll make my day a little more inconvenient. So here's some things that I recommend you take on your next fishing trip, whether it's with kids or without kids, to make your trip a little more convenient. Of course, you're gonna have your fishing equipment like rods, reels, tackle, line, pliers, and/or a knife, net, bait, life jackets, but you're also going to need some non-fishing equipment. Some of these are weather dependent, but you're going to need hats, gloves, coat, rainwear, sunglasses. If you're going to be messing around in a creek, have boots and waders. I also recommend bringing spare clothes. There have been times where I've overturned my kayak or canoe and didn't have any dry clothes to put on, and I put myself at risk for hypothermia. I do the same thing for my kids. I always have some spare clothes in my backpack, just in case one of them gets wet. It never fails, always happens on our fishing trips, or one of them gets wet. So having those dry clothes protects them from hypothermia, and it protects the inside of my truck from getting wet and muddy. For protection, sunscreen and bug spray during the hot months, and during the cold months, I recommend bringing hand warmers. Dry bags and containers are recommended whenever your wallet or your cell phone fall into the water. At least those dry bags will keep those protected. Emergency situations, I recommend having a first aid kit. I cannot recommend this enough, in fact, because it never fails that one of my kids falls down, busts their knee or busts their elbow, so having a first aid kit on hand to take care of those situations is a must. If you're going to be outside during low light situations, have a flashlight and batteries. Hygiene and nutrition. If your kids are like mine, they are hungry and thirsty little wolverines, so having food, snacks, and water in my backpack at all times to keep them satisfied is a must. Toilet paper. If we're out in the woods and there are no bathrooms, or there are bathrooms but there is no toilet paper, having toilet paper stored inside of a plastic container to keep it dry is an absolute must when you're out in the woods. Now, moving back to my equipment list, you're going to notice at the bottom there is a wagon. I have a wagon that I carry all of my equipment in when I'm at the park with my kids, and it is a lifesaver. Check this out. So this is the wagon my wife bought me for my birthday earlier this year, and it is freaking awesome. I've got 2 coolers in here, the backpack, bait bucket, big net, 4 fishing rods, and my lawn chair, and there was still room to spare. I cannot recommend you guys doing this enough. Even if you're coming out to the park with your kids and not fishing, just load up all your stuff into this wagon and make your lives easier. You're not going to have to pack mule everything in and out of the park. You can just load it up into the wagon, because many wheels make light work. Tip number 4, be prepared for your kids not to fish. A lot of the times when I come to the park, my kids couldn't care less about fishing. So before we leave the house, I say, hey, If you're going to the park with me and you're not going to fish, load up your football, your basketball, your bike, your scooter, whatever it is you want to do while we're at the park, get it in the truck because we're going. So when we get here, they have something to do while I'm fishing. That being said, a lot of the times the kids want me to pay attention to them because I'm their father. So I will bring my catfishing stuff because I can bait them up, throw out my lines, and put bells and bait clickers on them so that while I'm playing with my kids, if we ever get a hit, we can hear it and we can reel in the fish. So there's some recommendations for you guys whenever you're at the park and your kids couldn't care less about fishing. Tip number 5, exercise patience. This is the most important tip I'm giving you guys in this video because Lord knows you're gonna need that patience and your kids are gonna put it to the test. So when you're out here teaching your kids how to fish, remember, it's a lot like parenting in general. It is a marathon, not a sprint. So when you're out here teaching your kids something, realize they're gonna screw up. They're gonna make mistakes. So when they do make those mistakes, just step back, stay calm, keep her cool, and use each moment as a teaching moment. Show that kid how it's done right. And if you do that over and over and over, eventually they are gonna do it right. And when they do something correct, they catch that fish or they make that cast, say, heck yeah, that's what it's all about right there. Encourage them, tell them how they're doing things right, because in the end, that's gonna make them better fishermen for it, and they're gonna be better people for it as well. And I think that's what we want with, every parent wants for their kid. They want to come away with good life lessons learned, and hopefully that's what we're doing, teaching our kids how to fish, where they're coming away with good life lessons as well as good fishing lessons. So just keep doing these things, exercise patience, and I guarantee you, you're gonna have a good trip out there with your kids catching some fish. Well, if you guys found this video helpful and love fishing as much as we do, we'd appreciate it if you consider subscribing. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram. We hope to see you over there and in the next video. We'll see you next time, guys. Thanks for watching.